Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Big Heart City. Great to have you all with us. My name's Renee. I'm here holding down the tech. If you have any Zoom problems, feel free to send me a private message and I'll do my best to help you out. Have a couple of announcements here for you tonight. We are having an online day long with Vinny next Saturday, August 13th. And you can find the link for that in the chat. We'd love to have as many of you with us as possible. It's always a great way to spend a Saturday. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is there. And then, as you all know, everything we do here at Big Heart City is due to your generosity. We are a completely Sangha funded, community funded organization. So we really, truly appreciate any financial contributions you can give. And if financial giving is not possible for you, we are so happy to have you with us, and please keep coming. So those links are in the chat. And tonight we're really delighted to welcome back Ralph De La Rosa. And for those of you who don't know Ralph, he is an internationally published author, trauma-focused psychotherapist, and seasoned meditation teacher. Ralph began teaching meditation in 1996 and has taught since 2008. His new book, Don't Tell Me to Relax, Emotional Resilience in the Age of Rage, Feels, and Freakouts, was celebrated as one of the top 10 books of 2020 by Mindful Magazine. We're so happy to have you back with us, Ralph. Over to you.
It might be good for me to unmute myself before I say thank you so much. It is certainly a pleasure to be here tonight. It is always a pleasure to hang with this crew. A lot of this crew actually has filtered into my online courses, which is really cool, enjoying that crossover. As many of you know, I credit Vinny for being the first person to deliver mindfulness instructions to these ears, I don't know, a decade and a half, something like that ago. And so to hold this seat in his place, every time I'm asked, I'm just like, what the fuck is this life? What is this life? So much more is possible for each of us than we can even fathom. And I know that that's been true for me, and the work that I get to do, I see it become true for loads of people constantly, every day. And that's part of the promise of Dharma practice, really. Part of the promise of not just Dharma practice, but daily practice. I'm just going to proselytize for one minute moment here. Daily practice. Stick with this and keep going, and magic is possible. So good evening, everybody. We got lots to get into tonight, actually. We got a whole lot to get into. And actually, I'm going to just change my view back to, and thank you for changing it. Oh no, can I not do that? I can't do it. Okay, so before we go any further, speaking of daily practice, let's just sit for a moment. Let's just have a moment to really arrive in these bodies, really arrive in these moments, in this moment, and with these intentions. We all came here for a reason. And so can you close your eyes and drop in to the space inside? And begin by acknowledging whatever your reason, whatever your why is for being here in this space. And as you acknowledge that, we really want these intentions to move from the head down to the body. And so I invite you to take a deep breath and right up into the head, right where all the energy is condensed and concentrated in your body right now. And with every exhale, we're just going to deep breathe for a little while. And with every exhale, I want you to think about all that energy that's in the beehive of the brain melting down. Breathe into the head as you breathe out, melting down to the world beneath the shoulders. And little by little, with every exhale, we're melting down and bringing more and more attention and awareness into these bodies, into these limbs, into these pelvises and toes and fingers. Maybe a couple breaths to melt down the spine, the sides of the torso, the hips, the opportunity here is to fully arrive in the body, to fully inhabit this precious vehicle. And I got one more trick up my sleeve to help us deepen this opportunity. And that is a little something we call setting the breath in its natural rhythm. Many of you know this. For those who don't, we begin by letting our exhales relax out of the body. Stop pushing them and watch as they fade. Relax as they fade into space, and then don't inhale right away. Let there be space between breaths. And then when the inhale comes on its own, it's a very sweet effort, not pulling or yanking the inhale in, but just guiding it. But try this for just another minute or so here, letting every exhale just fade, fade, sweetly fade into a gentle space where you can sort of float. And every inhale that comes is just a little softer than the last. What's it like between the breaths? What do you notice there? So some of us might be at home with transitioning with the bow to open up the formal space of our connection tonight. Some of you won't like that gesture, so don't sweat it if that's you. All right. And then we're a huge group. We've got, what, 130, 140 of us. Some folks still rolling in. And so if you would like to just go ahead and you see the chat icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you would like to go ahead and share your name, where you're joining us from, and maybe a word about how you feel right now, where you're at right now, please be my guest, and we'll just have a moment of bearing witness to the chat box and how vast this gathering actually is. Hmm. We got Alaska in the house. C is in the house. Yeah. Some dear friends, lots of new faces. Not sure how one is feeling is a valid answer. Very nice. Feeling the love. Feeling the love and ready to accept what is. That is the jam. It's the only way, really. It's the only way. Oh, the Glassman. All right. Some of us are too blessed up in here. So, good. All right. So, I have a very important question. That is, how many Buddhists does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. The light bulb's already enlightened. I can't hear the non-laughter that's happening right now, but I can imagine it. And just to take this one step further, how many meditation teachers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Really, it only takes one to hold the light bulb and the rest of the Sangha to revolve around that. All right, enough of the corniness. What we're really here to talk about tonight is attachment theory, internal family systems, and the Dharma of it all, the truth of it all. And so I don't want to be presumptuous and assume that everybody here knows what attachment theory is. So I'm going to give you a very brief breakdown of this frankly profound science, or really it's a theory, but heavily researched. And it's one of what's sometimes called the four psychologies that form what's called psychodynamic theory or psychodynamic therapy. It's one of the four branches of theory, and it's the one in that four that just about everybody who comes across these ideas says, holy shit, that's true. That actually tracks, that checks out in my life. And what attachment theory is very simply the science of how bonding in our early caregiver relationships creates predictable patterns in our adult relationships, especially the intimate ones. All right, so if you had a home where there was trust, where you could rely on your caregivers, maybe not 100%. No family is perfect. Children's needs are too vast for any parent to actually get it right. Somebody told me they went on a parents retreat once where the teacher started off by saying, everybody raise your hand and repeat after me. I will fuck up my child. Everybody had to just say it out loud. Let's just get it out of the way. It's going to happen because children's needs are so great. And when we were children, not only were our needs so great, we were dependent on those caregivers and the adults in our lives. When we were this small and everybody was up there and seemed like a god, and we needed them for everything. And we were born into this broken and hurting world that's so confused, and to people who had been subjected to that broken and hurting world that's so confused and had their myriad confusions themselves. So every parent drops the ball, all the way up to vicious abuse going on in households. Let's be real about this. So those of us who turn to meditation typically didn't have households growing up that were quite so wonderful, right? For me, there was a lot of love in my home growing up, and there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of trauma. My dad ghosted my family when I was 4 and just tore everybody up on his way out. And then there was me, innocent little kid, just like wondering why everybody was in their rooms with the door shut all the time. You know, everybody in my house meant well. And yet I experienced what are called attachment injuries, where the bonding in that home felt like abandonment a lot. That was the quality of the vibe in the house. And so when things go awry in childhood, children can either arrive at one of two stations, really. Either there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with everybody else, right? That's just where children are at cognitively in terms of brain development and what have you. It's either something with me or it's everyone else. And if you are in the camp where things went awry at home, the love wasn't so reliable, or the parenting styles perhaps that were practiced in the home, not so consistent. One day you would get in trouble for something and the next day it would be totally fine, for example. Right. There are those of us who took it on ourselves and said, there must be something wrong with me that this is going on. And those of us who came to that conclusion likely began to develop what's called a preoccupied attachment style, meaning that anytime that love is present in our lives, it becomes something that preoccupies your mind. And sometimes called an insecure attachment style. I do not love these terms because they're pathologizing and people take it as like, oh, that's me, and that means that there's something wrong with me. We're going to come to that. It's not true. For folks who land in this camp, though, there can be a lot of leaning in relationships. I'm aware of my needs and I want to get them met. I may be testing the people that I'm with in relationships, maybe creating some drama to see if they actually are here, if the connection is actually sturdy, and a lot of holding on, a lot of maybe trying to change oneself to feel like you're good enough and feel like you're worthy enough so that partners or friends or whoever it is won't leave you. There's also folks who, like me, when I was a kid, like I figured out, hey, I'm pretty smart, and nobody here who's in charge seems to be making great decisions. And every time I follow what I'm supposed to do in life, it doesn't work out for me. It doesn't fit me. I end up feeling like crap, or things go awry in some way. And I'm pretty sure if I do the opposite of what I'm told to do, that's a better bet. That's a better bet. And we learn, folks in that camp, what's called sometimes called avoidant attachment. Again, terrible name, or I prefer ambivalent attachment. In relationships, we tend to lean back. I need my space, yo. You know, you can come close, but if you come too close, I start getting a little bit edgy about my space and about not wanting to be overwhelmed with your needs. And and there can be a tremendous fear of losing one's identity or one's sovereignty in connection with another person. And then there's those of us who actually have both the insecure and the avoidant at the exact same time. This is called disorganized attachment. That was me too. That's the ends I came to around my mid-20s. And that's a particularly confounding situation, because we want love and we're leaning in and we're trying to pull it in from others. And at the same time, it feels dangerous to have anybody close. And so we might go on the attack. These are the examples of when there's been significant enough attachment injuries to throw things off, to send people towards different ends than what I'm about to describe, which is secure attachment. Secure attachment arises in folks when that love is reliable at home, that warmth is reliable. There's some level of consistency. There's good, solid bonding. There's warmth. There's a sense of acceptance of who you are, being just loved and supported as a child. Somebody, one person is crazy about you, is just mad about you and thinks you're the shit when you're growing up. You get that, and chances are in relationships, when you're grown, you're going to be pretty okay with bonding with other people, pretty okay with being on your own, and not a lot of games to be played, because there's not a lot of anxiety or fear that creeps in and runs the show subconsciously. These are not conscious patterns that we develop. This stuff happens subconsciously. It's happening without our awareness, and this is important, without our volition. Without our volitions. These are ends that our nervous systems come to on their own. So lots of books have been written about attachment theory, and I want you to know that all of the pop psychology books are not complete. If you've read Attached, I don't know, I like Hold Me Tight a lot by Sue Johnson. That's a really good one. Stan Katkin's Wired for Love, really amazing book on this and how these patterns play out in adult relationships. But even those, I would say, are incomplete, because why? When this is discussed and when people find out about attachment theory, which is spreading like wildfire in the world, and for good reason, because again, it's something that tracks, it checks out. But when people start to get their heads around, oh, this is why every relationship I'm in, especially the intimate ones, things tend to go down the same no matter who I'm with. And we start considering that I'm the through line, I'm the common denominator in these connections. And then we might have a therapist, or we might read one of these books that tells us about this theory. And we start to think to ourselves, secure is the goal, insecure, avoidant is a problem. And if I land in one of these two camps, well, then I'm fucked, basically. I want you to know so many things that are off about that. First of all, I'm a fierce believer in what I call radical non-pathology. Again, these are not neurotic. These are ways our nervous systems adapted so that we can survive. Our patterns in intimate relationships, even if they're dysfunctional, actually represent some augmentation that our nervous systems did for us on our behalf when we were young and defenseless and needy and vulnerable that we didn't do, but our nervous systems figured out how to psychically survive in a tight situation. And so if you are identifying, I'm on the preoccupied side, I'm on the avoidance side, that is what your nervous system did to keep you safe. And in a situation where there were no good options. But make no mistake, that which is trying to keep you safe is not neurotic. There's wisdom in that. There's wisdom in that. Okay. The other thing I want you to know that it took me forever to see for myself, and nobody told me this, I had to piece this together myself, is that my reactions in relationships, which were all dysfunctional until fairly recently, our reactions in relationships to intimacy, such as what I'm describing, being freaked out that love is on the table, basically, they're not voluntary. They're not voluntary. If we find ourselves clinging to somebody, trying to be just right for them, freaking out when they don't meet our needs in some way, or running from love and fearing love and wanting love, but like also not too much, right? Or constantly trying to customize either ourselves, which we've been talking about, or trying to get our partners to change. That's another big one that goes on with this stuff. None of these are voluntary reactions. If you've ever been in a relationship where you found yourself saying to your partner, I just don't know who you are right now, in a conflict, that's because they don't either. That's because there's things coming up and out of them that are totally involuntary. If you've ever found yourself in a relationship and you are doing things where you're saying to yourself, I don't know who I am right now. Same thing. These are involuntary reactions. We do not choose these. But here's the big problem. How is it possible for you to be in any situation where an involuntary thing comes up and out of you, maybe in an argument, maybe in a time that's otherwise copacetic? In relationships, we all have this experience of like something coming out of us that we're like, what the fuck did I just say to this person? I didn't mean that, right? I didn't mean that. I'm normally really cool and chill, but like all of a sudden I'm anxious all the time, or angry all the time, or averse all the time, right? When we have that going on, it should be something that makes us very curious about the nature of our own minds to begin with. And that is that we are not solitary beings, that the Buddha taught that there's the principle of no self. And what no self means is it doesn't mean that you don't exist. Obviously you exist. Obviously there's a person going, behind the scenes that is inhabiting this body. But it means there's not a self like we normally think that there is. There's not a solid self there. What there is a fluid system of parts that are dynamically interwoven and that create a multiplicity, and yes, multiple personalities in all of us. We each have multiple personalities, in case you haven't noticed. Dissociative identity disorder is a totally different story, right? That's those personalities are so blown apart that there's no continuous sense of self. I have multiple personalities in me, but I have a continuous sense of who and what I am and what I'm about and how to function in this world. But we're made of parts. We're made of parts. And we're fluid, we're dynamic, we're ever changing. We're never solid, and we're never permanently fixed. We're never stuck, actually. Why? Because nothing in this world is. That's the upside of impermanence, y'all. It's the upside of impermanence, is everything's changing. Therefore, nothing and no one is ever stuck. It's bound to change. It's bound to change on its own. Oftentimes, it's not the question of if I can change. It's the question of how do I want to change, and how do I feed myself the energy that takes me in the direction of that desired change. But the change part itself happens on its own. In internal family systems, which is this process of psychotherapy and meditation that honors that we are made of different parts, and those parts are a fluid dynamic system. We actually have come to modify this attachment theory to say that actually you can have different parts that have different attachment styles in you, that there's a good chance that everybody has all of them, that everybody has all of them. And I've experienced this in myself. I've been predominantly avoidant most of my life, and I've dated people who manifested as avoidant, pulling back, ghosting, not following through with plans. And I've watched myself become deeply needy around them and preoccupied with them and upset that they weren't meeting my needs. This happens too. So attachment styles are not fixed, and yet conventional psychology talks about them as if they were fixed. Here's the rub, because this is getting long-winded, more so than I wanted it to be, which hang around with me long enough, you'll find out that that's kind of consistently the case. When I say we have all of them, I want you to hold this as a theoretical possibility, and we're going to check something out together here. That means you have parts of you that are afraid of intimacy and afraid of engulfment in intimacy. You have parts of you that deeply want it so bad, and are on fire for it, to the point that you might lean in so much that you scare people off. And we have the secure piece, all of us, too. We have the secure piece, too. Even if no one modeled it for you your whole life, it is there. When we step to Buddha Dharma, we necessarily encounter teachings on Buddha nature. Tathagata Garbha, the womb, that literally translates to the womb of awakened intelligence. It's the heart space, y'all. It's actually in your body. It's not a mystical reality. It's an ordinary thing that exists in all of us. In internal family systems therapy, we would call this aspect of our being self-energy. It's the essence of who we are that is not one of our parts. And it is marked by, generally speaking, there's a ton of qualities that we can begin to identify as we begin to experience self-energy, Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. But we start with 4 qualities, which are calm, clarity, compassion, and curiosity. That when these energies of mind are present, actually we're experiencing our true nature, under that which is underneath all of this. And that true nature, Buddha nature, was never born, is never going to die. It's just talked about in the Bhagavad Gita as something that can't be sliced with a sword, and can't be burnt by fire, and can't be drowned in water. It's something that is timeless in all of us. And whether you buy that or not, I'm going to invite you to check this out tonight. That it's there. That it's there. And I mean, if you've ever experienced any kind of healing in your life, you have experienced self-energy, because it's the engine of compassion. It's the seat of compassion within us as well. And compassion is the main ingredient necessarily in any healing experience. The last thing I want to tell you before we fold this into an experience of in meditation practice tonight is, this is a little bit of a personal story, but I met somebody recently and we dated for a couple of months, and sadly it didn't work out. But this person actually came from a family where she felt loved and supported. And usually I would actually avoid people who felt loved and supported growing up, because I'd be like, yo, we're not going to be able to relate. I'm fucked up. And you got to be my kind of fucked up in order for us to get each other, you know? And, but I've done some work and some really intensive therapy the last 4 years. And I met somebody who had this secure style of relating. And I perceived it in them, and I was curious about it for once. And this thing happened one day where as a sensitive meditator with some years of practice, feeling, and a psychotherapist where my job is to read people all day, I was actually able to feel into her nervous system a little bit in a bonding experience that we had. And I was able to sense this new sensation inside of me. And I was walking home going, what the fuck is this feeling? There's this, it wasn't like a feeling about her. It wasn't a feeling of like attraction or I like this person or I'm so curious about them. It was just this resonant feeling that was simple and clean and very ordinary, but very sweet and just solid. And I'm walking home going, what is this sensation? I literally have never felt this in my life. This is weird. And luckily I had a therapy session right after I got home that day. And I sat with my therapist and we went inside and we did some somatic work with this sensation. And finally the light bulb went off and it dawned on me, I think this is the feeling of secure attachment. And my therapist went, you know what? I think you're right. It's just this simple, sweet, and then just being a practitioner was able to let this sensation spread out through my body and began to let my psychological parts feel this from me, all my inner children and shadowy parts and critics and all the different aspects of my psyche, letting them feel this sensation and check it out. And pretty soon I had this sensation of all my parts being like wrapped in a blanket that wasn't too heavy, but not too light, and wasn't wrapped too tight and wasn't wrapped too loose, but my whole nervous system just feeling held in this sensation. I walked away from this therapy session saying, this is radicalizing, because if I can locate a somatic sensation in myself, well, then I can consciously bring it into my nervous system, into my meditation practice. I can begin to let my nervous system reorganize itself around what that sensation is. And as I sat with it in my meditation practice, something else began to dawn on me. That those are the sensations of the breath. Those are the sensations of the breath in meditation practice that I've been experiencing for stupid number of days. Right now, as you listen, this is going to be our practice that we're going to get into here in just a moment. But right now, as you take in these words, feel the breath, feel it right here in your nose as it comes in. Feel how smooth it is, how steady it is, how you can rely on the breath. Hey, you probably weren't paying attention to it a moment ago, but now that you open to it, it's there for you. You can trust the breath. And I'm convinced, this is my own personal hypothesis right now, but I'm convinced that this is one of the reasons why, out of all the 50 some odd things that the Buddha said you can use as object of mindfulness, the early Buddhists, they landed on the breath as the superior object of meditation. The one to really begin with, at least. And there's a reason why, there's many reasons why they would land on the breath, such as it's always with you. You don't have to contrive it. Right? It's deeply connected to our well-being. It's the midpoint between autonomic and voluntary nervous systems. A lot of power that we have to regulate ourselves in relating to the breath. Okay. But I'm convinced that there's actually a sensation there for us that is very similar to the regulated state of secure attachment, the state within which we can feel held on our own without anybody else present. That's the big thing that comes from internal family systems therapy, is this insight that, hey, you know what? If you figure out how to love yourself fully, completely, just as you are right now, if you can figure out how to open your heart to yourself and discover what Brene Brown calls a deep sense of inner belonging, then your love, your own love, can become the primary love in your life, which then frees everybody else up in your life. You no longer necessarily need them in quite the same way. We'll always need other people, don't get me wrong. But imagine for a moment, your love being primary and love from others being important, but second to that. You're the cake. Everyone else is the icing. You want the icing. It's sweet. It's what makes the cake worth it. But icing without the cake also kind of doesn't make sense, right? Let's come to practice. Let's come to practice. We will get into question and answer after this practice. Strike a pose. Let your pelvis rely on the earth, the support of the earth. And we sit in a way that reflects a sense of what I've come to call spiritual pride. It's not like worldly pride. It's a feeling of self-esteem, really, because this meditation shit is hard, in case you haven't noticed. But we keep showing up for it anyways. You deserve to feel good about that. So we sit tall with dignity in this practice, deserving to take up space, deserving of well-being and realization. An extension of that energy might be letting your collarbones be a little bit wider so that the heart is available. Letting the crown of the head lift a bit, like there's a string emerging from the crown, a hand pulling up on that string. Letting the hairline fall downwards just 1 centimeter, tiny bit. Chin comes in and down just 1 centimeter. Putting the neck in alignment. Ears over the shoulders, shoulders over the hip. Relatively so, at least. And you can leave your eyes open if going inside is too much for you. A lot of trauma survivors, that's what's real. But if it helps you to eliminate some distraction and tune into the world inside of you, the vast, fluctuating cosmos inside. Eyes gently closed. And either way, eyes so soft, so soft. Space behind the eyes, so soft. Letting the tongue be soft. Maybe taking a deep breath, and as you exhale, letting the jawline soften as well. And then we'll start with some belly breaths. Breathing all the way down to the space beneath the navel. When we breathe into the belly, it sends signals of safety to the nervous system. So I want you to keep breathing here. I'm going to say one more thing about belly breathing, because some of us in this community have experienced a real aggressive conditioning that has told us our bellies cannot be anything resembling round ever by any cost. And so if you feel bold enough to defy that by breathing deeply into the belly and letting it assume a round shape on the inhale, I want you to think about that expansion in the belly is prying the fingers of the stupid patriarchy off of your body. You're reclaiming yourself with this belly breathing. What matters most is that you simply continue. All right. And then allowing the breath again, like we did in the beginning, to find its natural rhythm. Exhales flowing out into open space. And we just fall into that space. And when we feel the whisper of the inhale wanting to come, we gently shepherd the inhale in. What I want you to know right out the gate here is how very held you are in this practice. We sometimes talk about community or sangha as a container. And that's what container means, is you're held in this space. There's 140 people here with you, and we are all holding each other. Because we create this space together. We are the container. And this community is something you can rely on. Friday nights have been happening for like 2 decades, maybe more. But each of us here also stands with an entire lineage of meditation practitioners behind us. Generations that pass down these instructions so that you, specifically you, could have them. So please allow yourself to feel well supported as you downshift with every breath that comes. Okay. And then we will narrow in, we will home in right at the tip of the nose and the nostrils, feeling each breath as it passes. Relative cool on the in-breath, relative warm on the out-breath. And again, can you bring your attention to this silky, smooth quality of the breath? Like fine satin. Right? The breath is steady. And it's here for you. Already here before you're noticing of it. No matter how far we stray into distraction, the ever reliable breath is right here for us, just the same. Okay. Hmm. And so I invite you to consider that these are the sensations of secure attachment, of healthy bonding, right? No drama bonding, we can say. Right? And here it is for you to relate to, right here in your body, for you to recognize and to familiarize yourself with. And you can breathe those sensations right into your heart. You can think about those sensations coming right into your heart. That sweetness, that reliability, that trustworthy quality breathed right into your own body from the nose, all the way in.
Ralph, you're on mute.
And you can invite your parts inside to the table here, parts of you that are maybe holding wounds, parts of you holding worries, defensiveness, guardedness, reactivity. You can just drop in a little message to the body. And another way of saying parts is to say nervous system, right? Invite your system inside to experience this sensation coming from the breath. Is there something here for us to be influenced by, to absorb, to internalize? Maybe it's even possible to let yourself love the breath. We'll end with this question. If it were possible to really embody something Vinny's always talking about, the love affair with the breath, if you really loved the breath and felt love from the breath, what might that be like? Can you imagine for a moment? All right, so please transition gently from your practice. We are going to take a 2-minute break just to stretch and to take care of the body, but 2 minutes. We'll make it super quick. We'll dive into some discussion, and I'm just going to give y'all a heads up now. This is definitely going to go a little bit extra innings. So I promise not to keep you all too late, though. So see you in 2 minutes. All right. So as we begin to gather and come back, just taking a look around. All right, we are by and large back. So let's dive in. We're probably going to go to like 15 past the hour. I want to leave some time. I know that this is a rich topic and lots of questions, and there's probably going to be a pretty potent dialogue here. But yeah, so I believe the process is to simply raise your hand, and our lovely administrators will select us. Yeah, we'll select you one by one and turn you over to this weirdo. What's on your mind with regards to this topic? I'm especially curious what was experienced in that meditation, but this is open forum, so we can get into just about anything here.
All right, we've got Melissa.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. I wanted to say thank you. I've never practiced, ever heard of you before. This is my first practice. And I actually spent a good part of the day weeping over my loneliness and feeling alone in the world. And I've been working for 3 years with amazing Jungian therapists, 2 different ones. Past couple of years, it's with a gentleman who's in his 70s, and his phrase to me is, "You're the prize. You're the prize," which is very similar to "You're the cake." So that was kind of perfect. I've never wanted a tattoo. I kind of want a tattoo of the "You're a cake" though. And I let myself weep today instead of trying to fight it. And I don't think I would ever say this to, well, I'm saying it to 124 strangers, but I wouldn't say this to anybody I know except for my therapist. I'm in Los Angeles. I sat on my back porch and around 5 o'clock and just let myself weep. And I just turned to the left of me and started talking to the inner child and just being like, "I'm sorry, there was no one there for you. I'm sorry that there was no one there that could hold your emotions." And I could gently feel the wind on the back of my neck. And my dad died. He caused a lot of the trauma because he was traumatized, and he died when I was 19 and he was 46. And my closest friend took his life. He was an alcoholic when we were 32. And I just felt them there. I felt like the wind was their breath on the back of my neck. That might sound so cheesy, but and it just gave me this sense. And it was the first time that seriously, the first time, and I'm a crier, like I cry pretty easily. I don't have a problem with that. But I let myself cry without trying to stop it or judge it or make it be anything other than I've been through a lot of suffering. I've endured a lot of trauma. I don't need to compare it to anybody else's. I don't need to give you the laundry list of what my trauma is because it fucking doesn't matter. I don't need to prove it to you or anybody else anymore. I know what that is. And that the way I continually traumatize myself over and over and kind of self-victimize is that I haven't checked off any, I'm 51 and I haven't checked off any of the boxes. Didn't go to prom, didn't go to homecoming, not married, didn't have kids. And it's a repetitive story, but that story was not created by me. It was created by society. It was created by a bunch of things. So I wasn't even going to talk that long. And I do appreciate you bringing up, I've never read the book Attachment. I'm so glad now I don't need to read it. Thank you for taking that one off my list. And that there is a part of me that is healed inside and knows what attachment and love is. So thank you. Yeah.
You're so welcome.
Yeah,
You're so
thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah. I feel moved. Weren't asking for a reflection in there, but I feel so moved to tease out a couple of things about your experience that you're sharing here. One is, I think that anytime we allow our emotions the kind of space and the kind of duration, right, and just the openness to just, I'm just going to let the walls down and let it out, man. That's an act of self-love. That's an act of self-compassion, really, because in that moment you are making friends with yourself just as you are, you know. And then two, yeah, talking to that inner child, right, in that very moment that you're aware you're made of parts, you have inner children inside, multiple, and you start relating to those inner kids stop being alone, right? They stop being alone because you're there with them, which is very paradoxical, very kaleidoscopic, really. But and so that's another deep expression, I think, of self-love. And the beautiful thing about this is, and this is really for everyone, is when our pain, shame, fear, reactivity from the past is triggered, right? Yes, the potential for it to be re-traumatizing, totally there. If we just stay in it and just re-experience it, and we have another moment of feeling like hopelessly in the cycle. But there's an opportunity present, and that is if we can start tapping into some compassion and some love like you did today. When our wounds are present, with compassion in the mix, either coming from inside of us or from someone outside of us, we move in the direction of healing. We stop moving in the direction of re-traumatization. We start moving in the direction of healing every time. Every time. I could break down the neuroscience of that, but it's just in terms of something to take away. If you're triggered and you can open the heart to yourself in the moment that you're triggered, you have just taken a good step towards healing in your life and getting off that merry-go-round, you know. Yeah. So badass stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So welcome. So welcome. Yeah.
We'll go to C next.
Hey there, I was trying to unmute, but I couldn't until that moment. Hi, Ralph.
Hi, friend.
Hi, darling. Oh my God, I'm going to stay a disembodied voice. Please forgive me. I'm in the pitch dark because I really went into the experience.
Okay.
And I wanted to thank you so much. I knew I loved you for a reason, Ralph. This is such good information. And one of the things that happened for me was something about your laying out the attachment theories the way that you did with the intro that, you know, we have to stop pathologizing these ways of being human. But as you talked about the theories, more information and memories and understandings came to me than ever have before when I've looked at these things directly. In other words, when I go searching for them in a personal context, you know, I get information, but something about you're talking about it almost in the third person, without pathologizing it, gave me access to a whole new set of things. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I went my way through grad school.
Right.
It's like, this is theory. All the theory. Yeah, just brought so much insight, right? Yeah, so I'm with you.
Yeah. And what I realized too was, and again, I don't want to talk too long either, but what the introduction of saying we've got to stop pathologizing these things immediately brought relief and healing. And it was such a no-brainer. Like, why are we pathologizing every human experience to the extent that nobody can heal? We all feel like such fuck ups. And as soon as you release that, you have access to healing. in a very simple way.
Mhm.
It's very powerful,
Mhm.
incredible. And one other thing I want to share before I shut the fuck up is
I knew I loved you for a reason.
oh my God. Oh, yeah, you guys, Ralph and I just met randomly at a restaurant. We just sat down and talked to each other. And so that's the history. But Ralph, I also, because I do a lot of this work, you know, with my clients and with my acting work, I, instead of meditating, because, you know, I meditate like hell, I laid down, I put my right hand under my heart, under my left breast, and my left hand over. And I had this really profound experience as you were guiding us, where I was breathing into the chamber of the heart in a circular manner, like almost as if the mouth was under my left breast. And the breath was coming in and going around, washing the heart. And so I just want to thank you so much. You so know what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that I popped in, and I love you.
I'm grateful you're here too, and that, yeah, my ruse of seeming like I know what I'm talking about has, once again, I've been victorious in it.
Yeah, you proved yourself, Ralph.
Yeah, thank you.
Just kidding. Thank you so much.
Mm. Yeah. The chat, it says I'll have what she's having. Yeah. Good stuff.
Linda, we'll go to you next.
Hi, Ralph.
Hello. I can't see you.
I know I am a mess, but I'm Linda from the Fulton Street song.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen you in a decade and a half.
I know. But you know, first of all, you've grown up. and it's really powerful, right? To see where you were at when we met and where you're at now. It's really beautiful because, you know, we're friends on Facebook, so I've seen your journey, right? So bravo. And the work that you put in shows. And what you talked about, I just popped in. I pop in every now and again. I'm not a regular, but today I was having a conversation with my friend, not specifically using the word attachment theory, but we were talking about our relationships and how we deal with them and how there's patterns and that kind of a thing. And so you just kind of solidified what I was talking about this very day. And then the other thing that I want to thank you for is, you know, when I do the inner child work, it's usually like little Linda on a tricycle running around in circles going, oh my God, right? And I have never, and I, you know, and I've worked on that. And now she was on the trampoline tonight. So thanks. And one of the things that I never noticed before or thought of is I never worked on my little inner teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, while you were talking, she was like, bitch, what about me? Right? So it's really special for me to have these tender sort of intimate experiences with you as the teacher for me for the first time as a grown-up teacher. So thank you, darling. It's good to see you.
Likewise. I think I was still in rehab the last time I saw you. We went to lunch on something like that after a meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
It's bananas.
Nicely done.
Gorgeous. I mean, yeah, keep talking to those inner kids, you know, find out what they need to move on, because they ain't got to stay kids forever. You know, that's the beautiful part. Or they can stay kids if they want to, but yeah, that's one thing I'm going to proselytize IFS for a moment to y'all. That's one thing I love about this model is, and we didn't get into it really per se tonight, but there's this wealth of technique around when we access those kids, whether they're little kids spinning on a tricycle or pissed off adolescent energies within us. there are ways to help them get unlocked from that role and from holding the pain that they do. There's ways, and it all comes down to compassion and open-heartedness, same as the Buddha taught. Yeah, good stuff though. Inner children, that's my jam. Yeah, I'm curious with these last maybe one or two, if there's any questions in particular about what we're getting up to, about meditation itself, anything at all.
We'll go to Trisha next.
Yeah.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can. You are live.
All right, so my question, and I don't know if it's relevant here, but I'm kind of curious about children that maybe disassociate because of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that fit into internal family systems?
Yeah.
And like, I noticed you talked about like disassociation or
Mm-hmm.
like severe, like almost schizophrenia. Is there like a difference? And I don't know. I just am kind of like, I appreciate how you're like non-pathologizing the attachment style. So I'm kind of wondering how that would, you would view that
Yeah.
disassociation when you have severe trauma as a child. And that's a healthy thing probably because it's so traumatic.
Healthy at one time. Healthy at one time. Right?
Yeah.
These are like computer programs that get written,
Okay.
coded in, right? In a
Yeah.
particular situation. Yeah. And
Okay.
where a kid like in that situation, dissociation might have saved them from losing
Sure.
it completely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But please go ahead.
Well, so I'm kind of thinking like with my meditation practice, what I've noticed is that even like today I had an interaction where I noticed like a sense of like unsafety around a specific person. And so it definitely helps me become more aware of like, what am I feeling right now in the moment, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's like the opposite of disassociation, right?
Oh, of course, yes.
Because that's connection. And but I had this weird tendency to like judge myself for judging that person. And so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And just like more on this disassociation type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are you judging that person, or are you discerning that there's something here that's not mine that I need to be aware of? You know?
I think I honestly, like when I get down to it, I'm like, something isn't right. And I'm learning to trust that voice, I guess.
Yeah.
I think in the I not been able to trust it or do anything about it, so it's unfamiliar to my body.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's okay to notice things that aren't so wonderful in other people that you don't want to take on, because we take on things from other people all the time. And the real way to prevent that is the mindfulness to be discerning. This shit ain't mine. that's your crazy. I got my own on this end of the fence, or on this end of the aisle, right?
And then like that would be a boundary, right, of your values.
I actually think it's one of the few energetic boundaries we actually can set, is discerning whose stuff is whose in a situation.
Okay.
That's mindfulness and embodiment, right? Really being in your body will kind of protect you from taking on something from someone else. Yeah. But then the dissociation piece, I just want to touch on this really quick, because the funny thing about dissociation is in IFS, we would say that dissociation is coming from a part of you.
Yeah.
Right. And the way we know that that's a part of you is, are you dissociated 100% of the time? Because if you are, you're probably not able to have this conversation we're having right now, right? Or like hold a job or do anything, right? So
Sure.
most folks who experience dissociation are dissociated 100% of the time, meaning that's a part of their mind. Now, what's interesting is dissociation, we think about it as being not a feeling, as like the absence of feeling is going away completely. But if somebody's dissociating in front of me, like let's say in a therapy session, I can start talking to them about, well, what does that dissociation feel like in your body? Do you notice where it is, what it's like? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it electric? Is it water? All of these things.
Huh.
And in that moment that somebody's noticing their dissociation, you see where I'm going with this?
Yep.
Awareness coexisting with dissociation tells us that dissociation isn't radical, it's a part, and therefore workable.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So another part of us trying to keep us safe, usually running an outdated program, and they could benefit from some compassion and the opportunity to evolve. That's therapy in a nutshell, and that's meditation too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So welcome. We got time for one more.
All right, Hadley.
Oh, all the peeps turning up tonight. What's up, Hadley?
Hey. So this was just touched on in the previous question. So I struggle with, I know the triggers are an opportunity, and yet I guess I'm going to tell you what I think the answer is, and then you'll tell me. So I find, and you know me, the blending is going on where the breath is out of control. I'm holding the breath. It's an indication. You know, all the somatic things, the eyes, throat, the heart, the pacing, a little bit of losing time, like watching the clock going, oh, I got to get out. I got to go do something. And you know, just invasive, like we're just can't stop thinking of all the betrayals that have happened, and not from a distance. And when I try to ground, someone mentioned a teenager there, like I do feel like the teenagers, like this is just, I don't have the patience for this, you know, they're real, that sort of body. So the question is, that's, I guess some of those pointers are indications that I am blended and that therefore I'm re-traumatizing myself. I am not actually working skillfully with the trigger, and self isn't really observing me suffering. I'm just with the part, and their self is not there.
Let's take some of the self-blame out of this picture, can we? Right? Because are you choosing that experience?
No.
They're involuntary, right?
Yes.
If you had a choice, you would choose something else, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not the one who's blending, and you're not the one, there's nothing off with you. You're not choosing to not love these parts, or not choosing the path of healing, or something pernicious in that moment, right? Your parts are putting themselves on full display and letting you know where they're at and what they're pissed off about, what it's like to just be hurt so much, betrayed so much, right? Yeah. And so for everybody else who doesn't know what this word blending means, it's cognitive fusion, right? Like the emotions coming up, and there's no space between me and the emotion, or me and the images and intrusive thoughts that are coming in. Right? So the question is, I don't know. I mean, you've been doing this work for a little while, and maybe there's something off the map of IFS and off the map of Buddhist practice, or that can help you without unblending, right? One thing you could do is you could say to those parts, I see you and I want to help. Can you give me some space? Sometimes it's really magical. You've probably experienced it before, that you just ask inside for something to give you a little space, and sometimes it'll relent. especially if you let that part of you know, I'll be able to love you. I'll have the space to help if you let me get some space. Right.
That line would be helpful. That's that line right there. I've done a script that Michelle wrote out, and but they haven't liked it yet.
I don't know why, but I just keep having this image of you just like with a hand on your body and just like using I love you as a mantra and
Yeah.
like just repeating it until it's real. That's something that's just circulating for me right now. How does it feel to hear that? How does that land with you?
I really see it with you, Ralph. I do. I experience magical things with you. I see hope. And that's so that can translate outside of the Zoom room. I think the breath today was really interesting, and I'm really getting into starting to open my mind to the breath work stuff.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting what you shared about, like, so maybe like just even today, like my hand on my heart, like just going into that safe belly breathing, which that paternal thing was right on, really freed me. So maybe that, and I'll stay, as you say, keep going.
Yes, the secure sensations of the breath, right? Could you breathe that in and offer just the breath to those parts, even if you can't unblend or do some fancy IFS trick, right? Can you just offer them breath, right? Uncontrived, natural, silky breath, right? That's also an option.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's for another day. We'll do the anger thing where I put those people, so but thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, but
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, of course. I mean, to Hadley and to everybody that's on this call that has struggled, that has been down 100 times and you are getting up for the 101st. And you've been through so much. We're gonna close out, and let's close out this way. Let's drop back into the body here. Maybe place one hand on the heart if that feels good for you. Can you remind everything that's alive inside of you of what a fucking survivor you are? You have overcome 100% of everything that's been thrown at you. More than overcome, you're still here working with it. Despite how difficult it is. Let your nervous system know. We're going to keep going. Until everything is healed and awake. None of that is BS. It's 100% true, including the last part, because none of us have a choice but to keep going until it's all healed. That's how it works, actually. And then in our final move together of the night, we just imagine the biggest, most amazing ripple effect emanating out from each of our bodies. And that ripple effect is all of your good deeds and the entire community's good deeds together. And it's rippling out like a shock wave to hurting beings and hateful beings and hungry beings and confused beings everywhere. We're sending them all our merits. And you know that place inside of you where you want to heal the world so badly. You want to save everyone. You know that place inside? Where if you could fix it all in a moment, you would. From that place, we wish together that may all beings be free and be happy. Om Namo. Gracias, gracias. All right, y'all. Let's do this funny thing. This is how we end Zoom calls in my classes. We just all unmute and say good night, and it'll be a big cacophony, but let's just see what happens. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, 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 good night,
Everybody.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Ralph. For now.
Thank you,
Thank
Ralph.
you. Good night.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks, Renee.
Great to see you, Jimmy. Thanks, Ralph. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
We'll see you back here on September 2nd, I believe.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed.
we
In
look
1
forward-
month, you
1
will
month.
be subjected to all of this again.
Yay.
Thanks, Ralph.
Round two.
And Renee.
Great job.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Ready?
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
Take good care. Bye.
Thank you, Ralph. Good
Buenas
night.
noches.
Mm.